welcome to The Ordinary Effect, the place where we talk about the things that we all notice, but maybe don't talk about. Listen, if you're not a subscriber, I invite you to please subscribe so that you can be here with me on a weekly basis. Hopefully you're enjoying the variety of topics. Today I want to talk about something that maybe around the water cooler we talk about, or around our supper tables we talk about, but I don't know that we all do much about it. We all kind of know about it. And that thing is dealerships, car dealerships, and their service. How do you know when you're truly, genuinely being helped, and when maybe you're being steered in another direction when you bring your car in for service or maintenance? Now, there's a big difference between being serviced and being steered. Most people don't recognize that difference in the moment, right? You might feel it, but you don't label it because it's a little bit subtle. You bring your car in and you go in with a certain expectation and you get some news, right? You go in for something specific. Maybe you booked an oil change. Maybe it's a seasonal tire swap. Maybe it's even a recall. You get the letter in the mail that says, hey, we noticed that we need to fix this thing and we do it for free because it's really our responsibility, so please come in. You expect a certain transaction. You expect completion based around those initial sets of expectations. But somewhere during that interaction, the ground starts to shift a little bit. The conversation moves from what you came in for to what they, quote, discovered. And here's the key. Discovery isn't wrong. I'm one of the first people that will say to the mechanics and service folks, hey, if you see something that is not quite right, I'd rather get ahead of it than be behind it later, because it usually ends up costing me more money. But there is some balance to that we have to be aware of and perhaps vigilant. So let's start with the most important sign that you may be getting steered, and that's vagueness. You might hear phrases like, we noticed some wear, it's starting to go, it's getting there, you might want to consider. Okay? And it's a fine line, but there's one that is, we also recommend. Okay? There's context to that last one, because I'm looking for recommendations, but there's context to it. Okay? Most of those are not measurable statements. Okay? They're directional statements. They're steering you into the next part. Okay? The first thing that you should be thinking is, what is the measurement? Brake pads, those are measured in millimeters. Rotors have a minimum thickness specification, and these things are important to remember, okay? Tires have tread depth. Batteries have voltage readings. Fluids have contamination tests. If you are not given a number, you are being given an opinion. Again, context, because sometimes opinion can matter in the right context, but you have to look at it holistically, okay? Opinions are easier to sell than data. That doesn't mean that they're lying. It just means that you haven't been given the evidence. And when you're going to spend hundreds to thousands of dollars more than what you went in expecting to pay, you should be getting evidence. Another sign is urgency without explanation. If something is truly urgent, the explanation will be specific. Look, your brake pads, sir, are 2 millimeters. Manufacturer minimum is 3. Continued driving risks metal on metal contact. That's concrete. Compared to this, well, they're pretty low, so I wouldn't wait. Those are two different levels of communication. One gives you information, the other gives you pressure. If urgency is involved, ask, what happens if I wait? What specifically will occur? Is this a safety issue? If the answer becomes softer once questioned, that tells you something. Okay? We'll come back to these, I think. Let's talk about stacking. Stacking happens when small recommendations are layered until the total feels overwhelming. Oil change, brake fluid, cabin filter, which is one of the worst things to do at a dealership or at a service place, engine air filter, throttle body cleaning, fuel system cleaning, alignment check, battery service. Individually, many of these are reasonable at certain intervals. But when they're presented all at once, they create decision fatigue. And decision fatigue often results into this: oh, just do it. A good service provider will prioritize. They will say, this can wait, this is the next visit, this is optional, this one is important. If everything is presented at the same urgency level, that's a red flag. Not necessarily dishonesty, but a real lack of prioritization. And prioritization is part of good service. So let's talk about warranties and defects. This is where awareness really matters. If your vehicle is under factory warranty, certain repairs should not cost you anything if they are related to the covered defects. Okay? You should know what your warranty period is, what is powertrain versus bumper to bumper, what mileage threshold you're at. If a component is prematurely failing, for example, a transmission issue at low mileage, and the dealership immediately quotes a higher repair cost without mentioning warranty eligibility, well, that's a problem. You should be asking, is this covered under my warranty? Is there a technical service bulletin on the issue? Has this been reported as a common defect? Technical services bulletins are not recalls, but they are manufacturer acknowledgments of known issues. Dealerships have access to them. Customers rarely ask about them. If a problem feels premature, mention warranty explicitly. And if you're near the edge of coverage, document everything before the warranty expires. I'm going to share a personal experience that I recently had with one of our cars. Okay, fairly new, very low mileage vehicle. It went in for a routine service maintenance. It came out and they gave a recommendation, and the recommendation is, well, we should machine the rotors because you have excessive rust. And so I said, and the cost of this was somewhere, at a discount apparently, was somewhere in the range of $700. Now, they wanted to do all four, okay? Brake pad, if I did rotors around the whole car, it's close to about $1,000, okay? $700 to machine the rotors, $1,000 to replace them. Most of the other service technicians that I know at other garages said, you don't need to do your rotors, sir. In fact, we stopped machining rotors a long time ago because what happens when you machine a rotor is that you make them thinner. And the thinner that you make them, they are more prone to warp, and then you have to prematurely replace them. Now, where we live in Ontario, Southern Ontario, Northern Ontario, very, very same in terms of the weather, winter conditions, right? There's a lot of sand, there's a lot of salt. I could wash the car and you'll see rust build on the rotors, right? So they're, well, it's got some excessive rust and there's pulsating, and they didn't test it for any type of pulsating issues. It was not pulsating. And so they were making a recommendation based on a very light visual inspection, asking me to spend almost another $1,000. It's ludicrous. And when I called the service manager out on it, they backed off. Because I said, well, look, if the mileage is so low, shouldn't this be covered under warranty? And then they said, well, it's just a recommendation. No, there's no defect. It's safe to drive. Think of all the things I talked to you about. It's safe to drive. It's just a recommendation. They backed off. They backed off because what they were doing is upselling me to try and get me to do this service. And by doing that service, I'd be worse off in the long run because I would have to prematurely replace those rotors, okay? It's winter. You drive it, you clean it, and you'll be okay in the context of the scenario that I'm providing, okay? Now, to continue, because we get to customer service. Customer service behavior is another signal, and that's what I experienced here, okay? Poor service doesn't always look rude. Sometimes it looks dismissive. If you describe a symptom and the response is, they all do that, that's normal, I wouldn't worry about it, without inspection, without test drive, without data, that's not a diagnosis. That is deflection. A good service department investigates. They replicate the issue, they document findings, they communicate clearly. If you feel rushed, brushed off, or subtly made to feel ignorant, that's not professional service. Professional service should make you feel informed, not inferior. So let's talk about cost validation. Before approving large repairs, especially outside of warranty, it is reasonable to do the following. Request a written estimate. Ask for part numbers. Compare pricing with an independent shop. Research common repair costs online. Ask whether aftermarket or OEM options exist. You don't have to say, I don't trust you. You can say, I'd like to compare options. That's normal and within your rights because it's your money that you're going to spend. If you are met with defensiveness for asking for documentation, that's a signal. Transparency should not create tension. There's also the issue of unnecessary early replacement. Common areas where customers may be steered. Rusty brake rotors that are fairly new, battery replacement without load testing results, alignment recommendations without uneven tire wear or actual rack measurements, fluid flushes recommended far earlier than manufacturer schedule, fuel system cleaning sold as mandatory maintenance. Those are just a few. Ask, is this on my maintenance schedule? What does the manufacturer recommend at this mileage? Can I see the test result? If the answers are vague or dismissive, slow down. Slowing down is powerful. Now, balance matters. Dealerships are not villains. They handle recalls. They handle warranty claims. They handle software updates and complex diagnostics. They have specialized training, but they're also a business with revenue targets. Understanding both truths at once is maturity for you. Blind trust is risky. Blind suspicion is exhausting. Awareness is sustainable. Here's the practical part. When you're sitting at the counter, do three things. Separate safety from maintenance. Separate required from recommended. Separate today from soon. If something is truly safety critical, it will withstand questioning. If something is recommended but not urgent, it will survive delay. If something is vague, it will become clearer when you ask for measurement. And if the tone changes when you ask for clarity, that is information. Finally, protect yourself long term. Keep records, know your warranty expiration date, follow the manufacturer maintenance schedule, document conversations near warranty expiry, take photos if needed, request copies of inspection reports. Don't sign anything that you don't understand. You are not being difficult by asking questions. You are being responsible. Dealership service shouldn't feel like a game. It should feel like collaboration. If it doesn't, that's the signal. Not to panic, not to accuse, but to slow down. Because in the end, the biggest protection isn't mechanical knowledge. It's awareness of how the interaction works. And once you see it clearly, you won't feel steered. You will feel steady. That is The Ordinary Effect. Thank you for joining me. I hope that you come again and you subscribe to our show. Take care.